Hello, and welcome to Mean Street News. Mean Street News is here to provide accurate news to help citizens affect change in their local government and beyond. Being nice is overrated. It is time to be real. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. The time to step up and step in is now. So please come join me, Katie, over on Mean Street News to discuss Ohio politics and beyond. I hope to see you there. Hello, and welcome to Mean Street News. Mean Street News is here to provide accurate news to help citizens affect change in their local government and beyond. Being nice is overrated. It is time to be real. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. The time to step up and step in is now. So please come join me, Katie, over on Mean Street News to discuss Ohio politics and beyond. I hope to see you there. Hello, and welcome to Mean Street News. Mean Street News Good evening and welcome to Mean Street News. I am Katie, and tonight we have two special guests, my daughters. This is Alyssa and Elizabeth. Alyssa is in high school and Izzy is on her way to high school next year. And I thought it would be perfect for you guys to come on tonight and talk about what I've been talking to you two about, the new legislation that was introduced last week, the SB 158, the cell phone ban, and see how you guys as Gen Zers feel. Now, what I already explained to you two is there was a bill introduced in the Senate that says that they were going to ban cell phone use in schools, which already is kind of a thing at schools. I know your teachers all have their own rules. But, my biggest thing is something that they want to introduce is like the sleeves where they like confiscate your phone at the beginning of the day and you guys wouldn't have access to it. And that is something I have issues with. But what I want to ask you, Alyssa, first, since you're in the high school, do you see like an issue with cell phones?
I mean, not really. I get it with people like pulling out their phones in class, but that's been normal for years now. And teachers have rules with putting up our phones, giving us warnings and everything. I don't think there should be an extra stipulation on confiscating our phones when it's really the phones aren't the issue.
And, another question I want to ask you, how much do you use your laptop throughout the day?
All day,
Like every class?
every single class. We have everything on Google Classroom.
And Izzy, when you were there at the school, because I know you've homeschooled the last year and a half, due to her, a whole situation that we'll get into on a later date. Did you see cell phones as an issue?
No, barely. Even in middle school, no one brought them out because they knew they would either get detention or something like that. So, like, it's really not an issue. I don't understand why they would even try to ban them when barely anyone brings them out. And when they do, they put it in this little baggie by the door. And it's not like taken away like by the teacher. They just had to put it in the little baggie by a door. I just don't see a problem with it. And it's just kind of stupid.
My thing too is when you guys go into the workforce, you guys are going to have your phone. You know what I mean? So I think school is a good practice now to be able to control yourselves, because they say you guys are so addicted to your phones that, you guys are on them all the time, getting notifications all the time, that it's bad for your mental health. They also talk about like social media app. The governor and the senator that introduced, two senators that spoke on this, said that, you guys have sextortion which you guys like the images being passed around school. They think that's going to stop it. They think it's causes depression. You guys you're addicted to the notifications. I mean, how do you guys?
Well, I would say that we're not really addicted as everybody thinks we are. Yeah, we're on our phones when we have nothing better to do in the class.
And your teachers allow
Now
it
I
at the
get it.
time.
There's a small portion of us that just go on our phones, they're addicted to their phones. Yeah, there are those people, but at the same time, phones aren't the biggest issue. It doesn't matter if it's inside school, outside of school, that thing just happens. And it's not very fun. There's always more to the story than what people see when those get passed around. And it's not like everybody's like wanting them. It's just some kids just exploit it, but a lot of kids think it's very wrong. And it does not happen as often as they think.
Even with that, we're using a computer 24/7. What's the difference? Even when, like, let's say, oh, it's time for break or something, some kids, even without their phones, will go on their computer and search up games. So what's
Yeah.
the difference?
And you saw those messaging apps on your computers, correct?
And people download them.
Yeah, but they've blocked a lot of them.
Yeah. What about the cafeteria? They say in the cafeteria you guys don't talk to each other.
That's
That
not true.
all you guys do is sit on your phones, and it's just you guys
Yeah.
connecting with screens. That there's no socialization going on. So you guys taking away your phones is going to increase.
That is a big fat lie. No one has ever gone their phones, and when they do, it's either showing like a funny picture, nothing inappropriate. We're always talking in the cafeteria because even like I've seen kids with their phones out and they get in trouble for it. So we're not addicted to our phones. That is a big fat lie.
And also, like, from my experience now, yeah, we're on our phones and everything, but it's the only time of the day that where we can answer our notifications and just basically like woosah for some of us. And we're not always on it. We share videos with our friends that are on like TikTok or something. Like, it's always just if somebody's on their phone, they're just streaming through something, but they're also talking with people. And I don't really see people out on their phones unless they're showing their friends something. Like, we interact a lot.
Okay. And now I want to so we talked about that. I want to just real quick, because I don't want you guys on here this entire time. I'm not going to drag you through 20 minutes of this. Safety concerns. Okay. I personally, I'm going to share my views with you. I've told you when you go to the office for something, I want you to contact me. Have either of you ever been denied initially to call me when you've requested it?
One time when I was getting a suspension, I asked like, hey, I'm not talking to you call my mom, and he said we'll do it after, and he tried to make me sign something that I didn't even know was about. So
And then you called me with your cell phone.
Yeah.
And you've done that.
They've always called my parents, but there was one time when I did something really bad, and
We don't have to go into it.
anyways, not to go in depth or whatever, I got expelled, but I was in the office with the vice principal, and I kept telling them to call my mom, and they kept saying, no, we have to do this first before, and I didn't say a word, and I just was calling.
And it ended up getting you in trouble because you then admitted to something. You were honest, and honestly, I will never fault either of you for being honest about something. And we went through a little bit of a rough year 2 years ago, but you know what you get to do, Alyssa? You get to prove everybody wrong about the judgments they made against you. Got to rise above that whole situation and really last year you came out shining, you know what I mean? Which shows you go through something and you just keep on trucking. But you were honest about it, and I feel like entrapment, you know what I mean? Like, they questioned you without me being there, and you've always requested me. Now, another safety issue, and I want to bring this up, is Vermillion. A few months ago, Vermillion City Schools had a false, what was it, a shooter?
It was just a false, like, level 3 lockdown alarm that we usually have if, like, a shooter or somebody gets in the building and we have to evacuate.
Okay. So you guys have drills, safety drills, like every month, like, because I get updates on the emails and stuff like that. So in real time, you guys thought this was happening. You did not know it was a false alarm. You guys all thought this was an active situation. And I'm bringing this up because in the governor's address, one of the superintendents brings up, in a emergency situation, you guys don't need access to your phones. It's a distraction. And at the time of this false alarm, what happened, Alyssa?
Everybody just started running everywhere. I had a couple kids and me run towards the woods, and there was a big group out in the field. Like everybody just ran everywhere, and even like the vice principal came over the phone and was like, "This is a level 3 lockdown. Like, wait, this is not a drill." And everybody was running. Everybody was scared. Everybody grabbed out their cell phones, called their parents, grabbed rides. I mean,
but what happened to your drill? Now, did you follow, guys? Did any of you follow the drill whatsoever?
No, not at all. We all started scattering everywhere. We didn't know where it was, but we scattered everywhere. Some people went to the neighbor's house. Some people went in the woods, like I said.
And you needed to contact, or some people went with random cars.
Yeah.
People were just piling in cars and leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So at that kind of emergency situation, I feel like I need to be able to contact you. You need to be able to contact me, especially if you're in the middle of the woods. How would you guys feel if something like that happened and you guys didn't have your phones with you?
I would run and grab something.
But how do you feel like just not even having it in case of an emergency?
No. I feel like it's like a prison almost, because if they do go with this, you're just going to confiscate our phones. We're going to be good little worker bees. We're going to sit down at our laptops and everything throughout 7 hours of the day. And then you're just going to give them what if you lose one? What if one gets misplaced? What if
somebody accesses
What
it?
if an accident happened? There was a recent accident where we had to go into level 2. A kid in my grade.
Yeah, and you need access to your phone.
Somebody had to call the ambulance.
Even when that whole situation with the level 3 lockdown, I talked to my friends about it, and one of them automatically called their mom, got a bunch of their friends, and hopped in her car and ran off.
But at that point, you would need access. What if your phones were in sleeves and none of you could access them? How are you going to contact anybody? How are you going to, even if worst case scenario, it was something serious, it was a real situation. How about saying goodbye? You know what I mean? If that were to ever come to, like, that's what I think of too. And then I want to bring up to you guys, remember COVID, Izzy? You're too shy to ask for a cup for the water station.
Yeah, and I was basically like,
and you would text me, and I know it took me a second to respond to you because I was at an appointment, but I had to call the school. But what if you couldn't text me to say I'm like dying of thirst?
Yeah, and at the time there wasn't those like push things where you can drink water, and even if there was, they were broken. And so
they weren't broken, they shut them off. The water fountains, you're talking about the push thing.
I don't know. But basically I was just coming out of gym too. So I'm already tired, sweating, and I just want some water. And I forgot to bring my water bottle. And I had no idea that there were water bottles.
Cups available.
Yeah, in the office. They never told us this.
But you texted me. I got a hold of the office and got you water finally, since you didn't want to open your mouth, which is kind of your fault a little bit. You're a little you're a little shy, but something like that, or you needed water bottle. You needed a water bottle. How many times you texted me for,
a lot, because I would forget in the morning.
Yeah,
that's on me a little bit, but I couldn't get water fountain or anything, and if I wanted juice or whatever, it'd be only during lunchtime, which was I had it the last period of the day.
Yeah, or if you're you want to stay after school and you want to ask me before you get on the bus, you need exit, you need your phone. If you were to say something to the state legislators, we're going to end it with you guys, but if you were to say something right now to the state legislators, what about the cell phone ban that they want to put in place, what would you say?
I would just say it's stupid. It's a prison. You're trying to make the school a prison because we're supposed to just sit there. I mean, I get it. We get to be interactive, but we don't really. Like, we sit there and we have to do work in the classroom every period. I get it. It's
on a laptop.
Like, on a laptop. And what if I had an emergency? I needed to call my mom. Like, it's just certain situations. Like, we already have a rule about putting our cell phones up. Why do we need it? Why does it need to be a law and confiscated and everything?
Even with that, sorry. But even with that, I've heard of staff members going through kids' phones and like searching through their messages and stuff. And it has happened to one of my friends before. Mind you, we're in 5th grade and she's going through her phone without permission. She got in trouble. And honestly, it's just there's no point because we're already on a laptop. What's the difference?
It's not reducing screen time.
It's not.
And that was another reason that they gave is reduction of screen time. But they yet, where I get that is reduction of screen time, yet they have you on screens the entire day.
Yeah, it's so stupid, and you should just like things that happen on the phone are going to happen regardless if it's in school or outside of school. And it's not going to reduce anything when we're already on the laptop and everything's on the computer. I don't think you're helping much.
And even with that, like, there is no difference. You guys could be worrying about something way bigger problems than just phones.
That's where I want to end it.
All right. Well, thanks, you guys. I'm going to take a
course.
quick break. I'll be right back. During my break, I'm going to play you a video. The first one is going to be Senator Jane Timken. She is who's the sponsor of this bill. I want you all to hear what she has to say, her comments before I play Governor DeWine's.
Thank you. It is a standalone bill now. As we said, sponsor and proponent testimony is taking place today. The hope.
Oh no, it's the wrong one. Hold on. It's gonna make me mad. Hold on. We're gonna play the governors first. I lied to all of you. Give me 1 second.
Happens all day long. Last year's State of the State, I talked about the need to take action in this area. We need to be sure that our classrooms, frankly, are now cell phone free.
We need to be
Senator
sure
Timken
that our
took the
classrooms
language
frankly,
that was
actions
actually
are
passed,
now cell phone
we
free.
talked about in the State of the State, and created a standalone bill, Senate Bill 158. That bill will ban student cell phone use during school hours. I want to thank her for taking that action. It is really time for us to do this. We all know that screen time is very, very addictive. Cell phone hazards, though, go even beyond that. Just having a phone nearby means students are receiving constant notifications all day long. Those notifications make it nearly impossible for students to focus and to learn. Studies consistently show that access to cell phones during school hours negatively impacts student learning and academic performance. Furthermore, these phones can be incredibly harmful to students' mental and emotional health. Which means that students are blackmailed with private sensitive images, videos, or information. Both of these factors increase the risk of suicide among our children. Tina Husted and her husband, John, our former lieutenant governor and Ohio's newest U.S. senator, have been really leaders for a long, long time in protecting our kids from these hazards. And they have been working hard to make a difference.
Which is a question of mine. Why is Tina Husted even in this press conference? John Husted's in the Senate. She's not elected official. Like, I don't even know why she's in this conference or why it's even relevant what they support. I mean, he's no longer lieutenant governor. He's in the federal government now. Goodbye.
I want to thank them for all their work in advocating for our kids' safety online. We'll hear in a few moments from Tina. Last year, as I said, I asked the legislature to require every school district in the state to come up with a plan to minimize the use of cell phones in schools. As a result of that, our schools have really started to look at this. Many of them have already come up with plans. I think the results have been very good. We've heard repeatedly from teachers, principals, school board members, superintendents, and parents who say that when cell phones are banned during the school day, schools transform before their very eyes. They said that their kids are focused in the classroom. The lunchroom is noisy once again. Kids are actually talking to each other. The lunchroom is just different, they've told us. The kids are actually talking instead of burying their heads in their phones. These superintendents and principals and teachers tell us student engagement and attendance have actually improved. Grades are better. Socialization is improving and becoming more positive. The number of students being disciplined is down. All the numbers have improved. Even communication between students and teachers has improved because they have more opportunities just to interact with each other. As a country and as a state, we've learned much in this past year. Again, a year ago, we asked for the studies or for the plans to the schools to study this, schools to come up with a plan and to implement that plan. But as we've looked at this and what has happened, and have seen the great results from the schools that have actually banned the cell phones, I think.
Now, what I find, hold on a second. Why is this doing this? Okay, sorry. What I find funny is, we're going to say, I call it fear porn. We're going to give you the fear porn. We're going to say it's the suicide is increased. They're Andrew Brenner's going to bring up academic performance. There's going to be, they say all these schools implemented, but don't give you, what schools have implemented, how many schools have implemented. They talk about, all these people talk about studies. They don't quote any studies that you can here's a study. They just throw a bunch of nonsense at you. And what I found funny is Senator Jane Timken, when she was asked during the Senate committee hearing after this news conference, how many superintendents have you spoken to? She said one. And the one superintendent that they all spoke to is one that Senator Andrew Brenner has been working with for 15 years by his own admission. And also was a big part of I call it the 911 snitch line that schools established with the COVID money. And during COVID, a lot of schools adopted this application and a phone line that students could report other students anonymously, and they would follow up with those students. So I call it the snitch line. It's probably not nice, but whatever. That's the superintendent that's leading the charge on this, which makes me super uncomfortable. He's the superintendent, Dublin City School, Dublin, Casey County, Dublin City Schools. Yeah, I'm not very, I don't really like him at all, but I find it funny. It's pure, in order to get this passed, it's pure fear porn. And then even if they don't pass it, if they decide not to pass it in the legislature, in the Senate or in the House, he brings up the fact that they might put in the budget bill, which I am completely sick of. It's not a budgetary item, and it's a sleazy way of getting legislation that the legislators don't want to pass. It made as law. And I honestly don't think it's right at all. And, they have this focus on, mental health. And I think this huge focus that these schools have on mental health is perpetuating the problem of mental health. Andrew Brenner is what the clip I'm going to play next. He's the senator in the Education Senate Committee, where this bill is introduced, and see what he says. And I'm going to make some comments.
Phone or a personal communication of any type, and you're sending it out electronically, it's completely lacking of any human emotion. You're just sending something, and the other person, is how they interpret it at the other end. And so that is what's led to suicides. It's led to other things. I think Braden's Law is a step to help prevent that by stiffening laws. But I think that by getting the cell phones out of the classroom, you're going to be able to eliminate this constant, kids checking their cell phones and potentially being bullied throughout the day. And I think that's something that we have to, as a society, come to grips with, that this is what's going on. And yes, I think parents need to be talking about it a little more when, the kids leave the school. They're going to get their cell phones back. I'm not for, banning cell phones completely, but I think during the school day when kids are supposed to learn, and we've had lots of learning loss, we've had lots of, cyberbullying and other things, I think we need to be taking that into full consideration, which is what's had to lead to a Braden's Law being necessary to pass. So I support it. I think that this is going to help maybe reduce the need for that law in the long run. Because if you have fewer opportunities during the school day to bully a kid who's sitting in, you got to remember, they're still sitting in a classroom setting. And if they're constantly getting their messages on their phone, that's a problem, especially if they're looking at their social media apps and they're reading stuff that makes them look bad in their own minds. And that's what leads to the mental health breakdown, which is why I think we've also seen a huge increase in the need for mental health. I think this will be something that could potentially also reduce the need for mental health in our schools. So I think there's a lot of things that are going on here that we are now, I think, and I know the governor, the first lady, everybody up here has tried to take a lead in, and I think that, we're going to continue going down this path, and we're going to be reviewing all of our public policies. And I think, again, Senate Bill 158, I think, is another great step, another, cog in the improvement of our schools and our students.
Senator Brenner, Senator Timken, you have this as a standalone bill now. What's the chances this gets added as an amendment to the budget?
Thank you. It is a standalone bill now, as we said, sponsor and proponent.
Now, I will say the language of the bill, the language itself says, boards may. It doesn't say shall. It's not requiring it. It says they may. But this is going to give your local boards, the push to actually adopt, these policies. And a lot of them, I think, would in a second if they had the backing of the state. But I also want to say, this is the state micromanaging Board of Education, which is local control. We have home rule. I mean, they're all locally controlled. So why is the state even, telling local boards what policies they should be making? And Andrew Brenner brings up this focus on mental health, I think is perpetuating. And, he says the academic loss. Well, the academic loss, Andrew, was from when you all shut down schools during COVID. You know what I mean? These kids went to online learning. And it's also from, I believe, the new framework that you all introduced during that time. Because what a lot of the public doesn't know is that the legislators during COVID took the opportunity to introduce a whole new framework, which I'll be going over in the upcoming months, and a whole new way to approach, they call it the whole child framework, and they mean the whole child. I call it, they mean their health, by their health, social, emotional learning. You'll hear that, which I think is undercover DEI. They call it the whole child framework because they think they need to address every issue with your child instead of just teaching them how to do reading, writing, arithmetic. You know what I mean? They say that your child can't learn, without, diving into their mental health and physical health. And to me, this entire framework crosses lines, but the schools get funding for these student wellness and success items that they say, social emotional learning, all of that nonsense, which is why I bring up the framework with this next person that we're going to hear from, who is pushing this cell phone ban, which is the superintendent from Dublin City Schools. I know it's Mr. Mountions or something like that. It's a weird name, but like I said, him and Andrew Brenner, who you've seen previously, have worked together for 15 years. And this superintendent specifically was part of the whole child framework introduction to the new application where students, parents anonymously can report problems that they feel that other students are having, and that will lead to a welfare call. And I'm going to play, before I play his comments, I'm going to play his video, because his comments specifically have to do with in case there's emergency, that there's no need for your child to have their phone. That just gets in the way of what they're doing, which my daughter even said she doesn't believe that's true, because when reality hit in the situation, when it was reality and there was a false alarm, not knowing it was a false alarm, their drills went right out the window. So this is the Dublin superintendent that I'm going to play from the whole child framework, and he introduced the 911.
Amazing is all you have to do is ask. When you talk about children and you talk about the partners that are available to us, when you have conversations at The Ohio State University and you go talk to the College of Nursing, you talk to the psychology department, you talk to the College of Education, anything we've asked for, they've given us. From research to support to coming to board meetings to doing professional development with our teachers on our in-service days. Nationwide Children's Hospital, all you got to do is ask. And it really comes down to building relationships. Even in a large district, you want your guidance counselors to know your kids. We want every kid to have that person. And for some kids, it might be their band director. For other kids, it might be a coach or a teacher. You have to empower everyone to have their eyes and ears open. And we started several years ago with See Something, Say Something. And at first, See Something, Say Something was a safety position we took in times when we were concerned about threats to our school community. And it started with our police officers and our SROs working in our high schools. It shifted now to also being about mental health and the caring for each other as we build empathy and as we build a caring. Our students who have been struggling, our guidance counselors hear from their friends who see something on social media. We've taken advantage of some of the state funds for the tip lines and for the apps, because kids don't want to call anybody on their phone. They want to send something directly from an app. So as we built those systems, you know where kids are, and you build the system so they feel safe supporting each other. And building that community has been huge. We are also incredibly fortunate with our police and fire folks. If we get a notification at 2 a.m. that someone's posting something that has one of their peers concerned, our police will do a well visit to a house at 2 a.m. And they'll go, if we can't get in touch, they'll knock on a door and say, hey, this is what we're hearing. And that sense of community, those relationships, then with the partners at the next level, has just been absolutely tremendous. So I would encourage anyone, just ask. It's amazing what you can do by taking.
So this is I will play that video to show that this guy has been working with the legislators for a long time on, initiatives that I want to say associations want to push. I don't think it's all administrators, but associations. Now this is the same guy that Senator James Timken says that she's spoken to that is pushing this. When asked, like, you know, how many schools are involved, they can't answer that. And then the common theme I don't like with both of these people that are pushing for this bill to be done, to be pushed through, is during an emergency situation, they both feel that parents are a distraction. Parents are an issue. And like my daughter said earlier, when Vermilion City Schools had a false alarm, their drills, their monthly lockdown drills went right out the window. Nobody followed it. Everybody did their own thing. It was mass chaos, and these kids need access to their phones to contact parents afterwards, to get in contact back with peers. So imagine your kid, you know, and you know, a lot of people on the comments the last couple of days have brought up Uvalde, Texas. The parents came and saved their own children when the authorities weren't doing anything. And this whole push on mental health, I think in the schools and, you know, being so focused on it is causing a lot of these mental health issues. And I'm going to play a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, an author discussing this called Rumination, when you know, and then I'm going to talk about my own personal experience, but I'm going to play 2 more clips regarding this this bill from the legislators, and then you guys can read my article later because I don't want to focus on it. But we're going to listen to what the superintendent says when a journalist asks them parents are worried about during an emergency their kids having access to their phones.
An individual student having a cell phone isn't part of any of those plans.
Why?
Talk maybe a little bit about what your perspective is on that.
One of the realities in today's environment is we all do safety drills on a regular basis. We now do active shooter drills on a regular basis. And at each step along the way, our staff's response, our communication with our first responders, and those steps that are taking to keep children safe don't include the children having cell phones. We all have reunification plans. So in the event that the unimaginable were to happen in one of our schools, we have drilled and practiced reunification plans with first responders, teachers, law enforcement to ensure we can get information to parents as quickly and as accurately as possible. None of those plans involve student individual communication with their parents via cell phones. I understand there's fear, and God forbid something like that happens in any of our schools. And our goal will be to get kids as safely back to parents as possible, but an individual student having a cell phone isn't part of any of those plans.
Why?
Because it clogs and slows the process. In any situation, if students are given directions and where to go, them looking down at their phones, them looking at their phones, it only slows the process as to what we're trying to do, what we've practiced when it comes to evacuating, when it comes to lockdown, when it comes to shelter in place. Whatever those plans are, students need to be paying attention to the adults who are giving them those directions. And if they're on their phones, it slows things down. So we need to remember that our job as schools is the safety of those kids when they're in our buildings. And in that case, the adults who are in the building, in the space with them, need to be the ones giving them the directions.
So let me just add that Superintendent Marshausen's comments are very consistent with our Office of School Safety and the advice that those experts give. And I think it's consistent with the advice that I've heard from other experts as well. Who else?
I disagree with him. I want my kid to have their phone during an emergency. Like I said, you can drill and drill and drill, and then when it happens in real time and they think there's a real emergency, guess what happened to your drills? They went right out the window. And you know, a point about that I also want to make is having a monthly drill for a school shooting. What do you think that psychologically does to the students too? Do you think that's good for their mental health to perpetuate I mean, I understand that the kids need a drill, but I mean, every month there's like a level 2, level 3 lockdown. What do you think that makes students feel safe and secure? I don't. It terrify me. It terrified me. Now, the woman who spoke at the Senate committee, gave her opponent testimony, was Christine Vanee. She's the CEO of Unite for Safe Social Media Columbus National Partnership. She's trying to take this cell phone ban nationally, okay? And, she even wants to go even further than the cell phone. She wants to take smartwatches and tablets as well. And, she says that Scott Demore, the president of the Ohio Education Association, supports her, and the National Association for School Resource Officers. Well, of course, school resource officers don't want phones. Like, there's plenty of reasons for that. But she also had the same sentiment that the superintendent had, that parents are a distraction during the time of cell phones are a distraction during a time of emergency. And, even senators brought up the fact that, parents want to be able to get a hold of their students in case of emergency. And also, what about those students that, could be the one person that calls in case of emergency, that makes that phone call, that saves that life, or makes a call saying that, some kind of information that's needed during that time, a health emergency, you know what I mean? Like, and if they, a big concern of that to, even Ingram, Senator Ingram, she's a Democrat, was saying was, she has an issue with them not having access to them during an emergency. And, we just had a comment that I posted up there from someone that she said they're no different than laptops. And Tammy, and I completely agree, Tammy, they're no different than laptops. And you have them on a laptop all day long. So this fear of phones, like, they're causing such an issue. Like my girl said, it's a non-issue. It really is. And I'm not like the cell phone, like, woohoo, be on your phone. My kids aren't even on social media. I mean, my 17-year-old doesn't have a social media applications because I don't think it's good. I don't think social media in general is good for them. But, I think it's up to the parents, and you're really the legislator. It's micromanaging, and it's unnecessary.
From some of the press that, some families and parents would want their kids to have it because of safety concerns, but you're saying that basically the recommendations are that they can actually be a bigger distraction, especially in a school setting like that.
Yes, absolutely. I'm busy texting mom. I'm not listening to where we need to go. Mom's texting me, and it's pingings, and so the perpetrator may know where I am. False information gets out on social media. They talk about parents. This is all the National Association of School Resource Officers. Parents flooding parking lots, which make it even more dangerous for the parents themselves if there's an active shooter. So schools have policies now that get the word out immediately to parents, that focus on the sort of interior evacuation plans. And I think Superintendent Marshausen from Dublin today spoke to the plans they have for.
I'm not going to play the whole thing. You can go to Main Street News. I'll have the videos up there of the entire Senate hearing. And because my one video clip messed up with Jane Timken, I'm not going to play what Jane Timken said. But she said the same sentiment. What I thought was funny is her little line is let's unplug our students, and you're going to unplug our students, but yet they're plugged into laptops all day long. Now, I'm going to go off on, let this go. I'm going to have an article, and I'm also going to have a survey up. If you guys can do me a favor, is when I post my article, go to the survey and take it, because when I go give opponent testimony in front of the Senate, and when I speak to the legislators, both on the House side and on the Senate, I want to provide them with some actual statistics on how parents and the communities feel about a cell phone ban. So I'll have a link on my article, SurveyMonkey, and please go on there and say if you agree or disagree on banning cell phones for school, for kids for school. Now, before I get into the mental health thing, I want to get into, because it was brought up so much today, and it's such a huge part of the whole child framework. And my personal experience with this, I'm going to comment on, but I think, the focus on, school shooters is not a good thing for their mental health. But I also think, this huge focus the schools have on mental health is what's causing a lot of the mental health issues. And I remembered a Joe Rogan podcast where there was a woman who wrote a book on there, and she was discussing, how Gen Z, the focus on mental health and how it is affecting Gen Z. And, the schools are really pushing this, but I think the focus is the problem. I think they need to focus on reading, writing, and math, and not playing psychologists with our kids. And I'm not going to overshare, but my daughter went through a little bit of a rut. Like she said, she had gotten in some trouble. And what got her out of it is stop focusing on it. She got a schedule. She started working out. She, no offense, I'm not the nicest mom that's going to sit here and be like, oh, are you depressed? No, get over it. You need to get over it. You need to stop focusing on it. You need to change your mentality. It's all in your head. And she got on a workout regimen. She actually had a schedule for her day on what she was going to be doing. And it completely pulled her out of the rut. And that's where I'm coming to is, our state legislator has a huge focus with schools on mental health and mental health treatment. And our kids have such a problem with mental health. And I think that's the problem in and of itself, is when we were in school, we did not focus. There was no focus on mental health the way it is. And honestly, my belief, it's a huge money grab. It's a huge money grab. And I'm going to play a couple of clips from Joe Rogan, and then I'm going to let you go for the night. But I want, parents to start thinking about this, and especially the schools getting involved in kids' mental health. It's a little scary.
They have the lowest sense of efficacy. They report an external locus of control, meaning they don't think they can improve their lives. See, millennials thought they could do anything, right? They are the Mark Zuckerberg generation. And that's why we had so many tech founders in that generation. We're not seeing that with these young people. They don't want to be in charge. They're afraid, and they don't feel up to it. I talked to, there's a friend of mine I call every year on her birthday, and she's a research scientist, cell biologist. And every year she invites kids to her lab for an internship who are top kids, pre-med graduates from college before they go into med school. And she said to me in the last decade, when I called her this year for her birthday, she said to me, I can't believe you're writing about this generation. They are so different. And I said, tell me why. She said, I'm seeing the smartest, most prepared kids, and they're afraid to run their own experiments. They tell me they're getting ready. They're working on their skills. They're not yet up to it. And they constantly report to me about their mental health, how they're feeling today. They can't just take a chance and go with it.
It's weird because as a parent, like, you want to hear kids out. And when they're having like some sort of anxiety and issue, you want to talk with them and you want to talk through it. Sure. And you don't want to tell them, hey, you're going to have to suck it up. I never say that. And I probably should. I mean, I don't know if I should. But I mean, if I had boys, I probably would. I think I would probably treat them differently. But I think that there's a fine line. Like, where is the point of diminishing returns? Like, where is it valuable to address feelings and anxiety and thoughts? And is it irresponsible to do so without giving them tools to mitigate those things? And along with those tools, to explain to them that there's things that they're going to have to do in this life that are very difficult, but that there's a great reward in doing these very difficult things.
So the problem, as I see it, is not that you're not saying suck it up. It's that no one ever says suck it up, no matter how minor the scratch to these kids, okay? And sometimes being told you'll live. Remember when Dad used to say you'll live or, shake it off? We never hear shake it off anymore. No one says it. So they don't know they can overcome even minor injuries. And the truth is, they can. They can. But they recently did these studies on these, coping techniques. They taught coping techniques to teenagers, over 1,000 teenagers in Australia. It was called the Wise Teens Program. They talked to, that was the point. It was just to help them with emotional regulation. And it turned out it made kids sadder and more anxious. They measured this. And the reason was regularly ruminating on your bad feelings can make you feel worse.
Did you talk to therapists when you did this?
Yeah, a lot of therapists.
Yeah. How many of them agree with you?
So there was a huge split. The academic research psychologists overwhelmingly agreed. They were aware of the literature and they said, yeah, these are bad practices. Here are things we shouldn't be doing with kids. What was interesting is a lot of the clinical therapists were either minimized the risks of therapy or denied that there were any.
But isn't that like Jiffy Lube? Like when you tell them, you don't need to change your oil that much. Well, it's their business to change oil.
Right. Exactly. So like I talked to this one amazing, child psychologist.
It's their business model. Why wouldn't they not, promote, your kids going to see them, even if it's to that kid's detriment? And some kids do, I will say, need the mental health issues. There's families that don't, but that's not the majority. And, it is a problem with Gen Z, to be, telling their employers how they feel. No offense. Like I grew up in a generation, you still have to move on. You still have to do your work. You can't sit and focus on your mental health, but that's what they do when they go through school. When they're in school, you got to focus on, your mental health. And I'm not crazy. This happens. My daughter actually, for me, was a little bit of a spy in middle school and recorded a classroom therapy session where these kids are sharing, stories that, no offense, later bullies will go and use against you, but they're in like a classroom psychology counseling session. I mean, it was ridiculous. Group sharing about, private stuff and, have this focus on how you're feeling, instead of, like I said to my daughter when she was going through a little bit of a rut, I'm not the nicest person, but I've dealt with, mental health stuff as a teenager. Suck it up, move on. Like you get a schedule, start working out, happy hormones. We have this since COVID, this mental health thing has like really overtaken the schools. And I don't even think parents really realize it. And they call it social emotional learning. And they always talk about like, we're trying to, socialization. You can't focus on that in real life. I have 2 more clips for you. And hi, Amy. Move this from studio. Sorry, just hit Amy Janice 6. Hello. So I'm not just talking to some random. And she said, they go into, and he's like, it's kind of like Jiffy Lube. Like, I sell this. Yeah. Why would clinical psychologists say no when they're the ones? It's a business. And it's a business for these schools. And not to get off topic, but another business for these schools, the sleeves that they want to put these phones in for the school part of it. And I know this is off topic. This is me, weaving. That's going to cost the districts hundreds of thousands of dollars to purchase. I, for one, don't want to be purchasing those. I mean, it's just another way to spend money.
The reason I would do that is because I don't want them to experience harm. So if they see that their worries are getting.
Now what she's going to get into is saying, when you go into therapy without like, a goal or without like an end thing, she feels, it's inappropriate. Like therapy is supposed to treat something that you're going through right then, this perpetuation of like this constant therapy. It's not healthy. It's not healthy for kids. It's not healthy for anyone.
Getting worse, they have to tell me.
Huh. But do they? Would they? I mean, it seems like the therapist is the one who's in control, right?
Right.
The therapist is the expert. They're the one who has the authority.
Right. Well, I mean, this one was Camilo Ortiz was one of the, he was the one I talked to, and he was the one that I was referring to there. And first of all, he always starts a therapy by setting the number of sessions. It's not, he doesn't treat a kid like an annuity You're going to, be my income stream for years.
Right.
He attacks, and also they come to him with an actual problem, like chronic bedwetting, like, various kinds of phobia. There are people who treat anorexia. They're tackling a problem.
Right.
And some of those therapies are extremely necessary and very successful.
When this person that you were just describing, if they get someone that comes to them that doesn't have a real problem, do they turn them away?
Well, you can ask, but very often the therapists don't turn them away. That's the problem.
Right.
Too many therapists. I mean, I saw, I think back to the first book, and I would ask, did anyone have a therapist who said, you know what? I don't think the trans identity fits you.
Right.
That doesn't seem to make sense to me. In almost no cases did the therapist stop a girl from going down that road. No, you don't have gender dysphoria. Listen, it's mostly little boys. Okay, it's overwhelmingly starts with little boys, and you see it in men. It's overwhelmingly male phenomenon, and it always starts ages 2 to 4. So you discovering this at age 12, let me tell you something, with your friends, it's so unlikely, we don't even need to go there. They never said that.
Well, I think they get scared of the blowback as well.
Yeah,
right? And
sure.
what they would hear from their parents. You're telling my child they don't have a problem when they have a problem.
Well, also the incentive is for therapists to treat the least sick for the longest period of time. That's the incentive. Because you don't want the schizophrenic patient who really needs you.
Right.
They're really hard to treat.
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible, right? You don't want the bipolar patient.
Right.
Some people will refuse to see those patients. But a teenager with a little social anxiety, parent pays on time, they're not getting violent in your session.
Oh, boy. Wow. I never really considered that until your book. Until I heard the title of your book and I read the synopsis of it.
It's a business model. So the state pushing mental health services, all these clinics, all this, you think they're really caring about how our kids are feeling. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's a business model. And it's something that they want to introduce in the schools because, like I said, they can make money off of it. And I think it's to hurt a generation from not focusing on their goals and not focusing on just living. They're focusing on how they're feeling, and they also use those diagnoses as a scapegoat instead of just dealing with their problem. And like I said, like she said, she's going to say, the biggest problem with depression, any psychologist will tell you that, and especially anxiety, depression, what a lot of these kids, they say that these legislators say that they're going through, this mental health issue. Half the problem is, it's called rumination. It's when you obsess about your depression itself. It makes you more depressed. So the schools are focusing on all these kids' mental health. They're telling these kids, focus on your mental health, focus on how you're feeling, focus on your emotions. And what do you think that's going to do? And if you're not feeling that it's also not okay not to feel good sometimes. And like I said, with just my personal experience with my daughter is when she went through that rut, I old schooled her. Life isn't easy, sweetheart. It's all a mental issue. You got to stop focusing on being depressed and focus on a schedule. Start working out. Happy endorphins. Don't just sit around eating potato chips feeling bad for yourself. That's not going to fix anything. And she did. And not only did she lose 30 pounds, but she feels better. She was going out with friends again. She, got out of her little rut and now I think is mentally stronger for it. This is my last clip. They talk about rumination, which is focus on the depression. I really want people to be wary when the government thinks it's their responsibility to help your kids' mental health. I don't think that should be a school thing. And then we wonder why academic performance is bad, and it's because you're focused on social emotional learning rather than reading, writing, and arithmetic. And getting involved in stuff that's really parents' issues. And then when you bring up the fact that it's parents' issues, a lot of people like to say, well, the parents aren't doing it and the parents don't do this and you wouldn't know what the parents do. I don't think that's the case, Because as much as the schools say they want parental involvement, I've never felt that. I felt like my involvement was an issue. And maybe it's just me, but
that thinking about your problems all the time and talking about
sorry, but I don't want the schools in charge of my child's mental health. Not even nothing. I don't want them to have anything to do with it.
your problems all the time literally make the problems grow.
That's right. I mean, it's the number one symptom of depression is what they call rumination, this pathological obsessing over your pain.
Yeah.
That's why stuff like exercise, that's one of the reasons, aside from chemical reasons, one of the reasons that doing anything, you know that running errands is good for your mental health? Getting out of your house and accomplishing anything
Yeah.
is good for you. But sitting around talking and thinking about your problems, that's a bad habit. And the best cognitive behavioral therapists and others, you know, the dialectical behavioral therapists, the ones who do really well with depression, the first thing they do is try to break that bad pattern. But a lot of therapists just indulge it.
It's a luxury that's provided to you by a life that's fairly safe. You know, people that live in war-torn countries and have very difficult lives, they don't have that luxury of just sitting around all day and doing nothing and, I go outside and run errands. That's going to make me feel better. You're dealing with like real stress.
That's right.
And I think that there's an expression that someone told me once, and I say it all the time. The worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. If it's you got a dent in your car or it's your parents get killed in a car accident, either one of those things is the worst thing, depending upon the level of whatever stress or anxiety or horrible things that you've experienced in your life. That sort of measure, that's your watermark for what you can and can't tolerate.
That's right. And what we should be telling kids is that the amazing story of human history is of resilience. It used to be the case that people lost a sibling. That was common. People lost a parent. That still happens, right? These things still happen. And the amazing story of human history doesn't mean it's not painful, but of resilience. They get on. They aren't permanently suffering with mental illness or mental problem. They form families. They are responsible in their jobs. They show up for work. They can be depended on by their friends. That's the story of human survival and resilience. And unfortunately, we're telling kids, no, you've had trauma.
Yeah. Yeah, you've had trauma and you need to work through that trauma.
Right.
It's not just, this is just a part of life. And, you know, what you need to do is just go out there and live your life and you'll get over it.
And, you know, the thing is, the truth is that most kids and most people did. In other words, that didn't mean that dad didn't lose his job and they were forced out of the, they had to lose their house, or these things happen. They've happened in every family. And I think one of the many reasons that kids don't know this today is we've cut them off from extended family. The story of their grandparents is a story of resilience in almost every case, right? You hear about your family history and you're going to hear a story of pain and survival.
I like that. It's you need more family. And I couldn't agree with that more. More extended family, knowing your family's history instead of, perpetuating counseling and perpetuating, you have a mental illness and have to deal with that. I mean, not Gen Z, but I don't know who between the Gen Z and the millennials are, but I'm not going to say exactly who it is, but my other family member who's a lot younger than me, their generation very much focused on, social emotional, how they feel. And, now as like adults, they're like, I'm depressed today. I can't go to work. That's not a thing. It's really not a thing. And, I would be weird. And this is my point to the mental health stuff, is when the legislators are saying that this law needs to be passed because of your kids' mental health, because of, hold on, I'm gonna get to Elizabeth. Addicted to screen time because it's harmful to mental health and emotional health, because of sex, extortion, and blackmail, because of loss of learning, because of classroom distraction. I mean, all these what I call fear porn. I think you're not standing on solid ground on that bill. And I think if you have to use fear porn in order to sell legislation, legislation in itself is inappropriate. I mean, saying that, because kids have cell phones in schools, suicide is increasing and sextortion's increasing. No offense, sextortion happens. I don't think these kids are sending each other blackmail or doing inappropriate sextortion stuff at school and then sending it. If so, we have a bigger problem with what's going on in the schools. You know, being on laptops all day and then saying they need to reduce screen time. That's an oxymoron. Let's unplug our kids, yet they're on laptops throughout the entire day, but the cell phone's the issue. I think you have bigger issues. And I want to warn parents to, be aware of this mental health push. It's not healthy for our kids to be so focused on their mental health. I'm not saying ignore it completely. I'm not being that cold person, but the obsession with it, and it's because of the business. Don't think the state legislators really care about mental health issues. This is a way to perpetuate more business with big hospitals. I mean, look at during COVID, all the partnerships you saw. During COVID, you saw the health clinics come in, you saw the mental health counselors come in, and it wasn't just to deal with COVID. This was their plan through their educational framework that the superintendent who's pushing this bill also has been a part of. I mean, the whole child framework leads to they're determining everything off what's called social determinants of health. And I'll get into that at a later date. But, the schools want the control of literally the whole child. And I don't think the focus is on family as much as it should be. But like I said, when the legislators need to use fear porn, like suicide, extortion, all this to push a bill, it's not a good bill to begin with. And I will give this to Senator Jane Timken, who's the sponsor of this bill. I don't think she wanted to introduce this bill, to be honest with you. Senator Timken wasn't elected. She was appointed by Governor DeWine. Governor DeWine said in his speech that he brought this up during the State of the State address for the schools to, adopt policies, and now he wants to make it law. So I really think this is more of a Governor DeWine initiative and using the lady that he appointed to sponsor this initiative, because I don't think her talking points were strong. And no offense, just body language alone, I don't really think she wanted to introduce this bill, but she did. And I find it very odd that Tina and John Husted went to the Senate federally, and Tina Husted isn't an elected official, isn't in a part of the General Assembly, yet is standing behind DeWine saying, let's go forward. I get it, John Husted was the lieutenant governor and stuff, but I think that's just weird. And Andrew Brenner, whatever. I think he's just on board just to be on board because he's on board with the entire framework itself. But I think academic loss and all of this is due to a lot of these mental health initiatives, social emotional learning initiatives, not focusing on math and writing and arithmetic and focusing on, other inappropriate things that the teachers, I honestly don't want the teachers teaching my kids about their feelings and emotions. That's my job. That's not your job. And I will tell you this, I'm an opponent against this bill. I don't think the legislators need to even be dealing with this. I don't think it's an issue. I think if boards want to deal with it, that's on boards to do, and that's on that community to deal with. And I do not like, that one superintendent that is pushing for this is a part of the whole child framework initiative. And we'll get into the whole child framework at a later date. But check out my article, please. Click the link in the article to take the survey if you support SB 158 or not. I'll be taking my results to those back to the Senate when they go back into session. I think it's the 28th. But you guys have a good night, and thank you for joining me. And stay focused, Ohio. I'll talk to you. Thank you for joining me today on Mean Street. I hope you enjoyed the show. I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider supporting our work and supporting my effort. You can support directly underneath at the Spotify donations, or you can directly give a donation at paypal.me/Mean Street, Ohio. Any donation received will help me continue to provide news to you and everyone else across Ohio and beyond. I love what I do, and I just hope to continue to do it. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me today on Mean Street. I hope you enjoyed the show. I would greatly appreciate it if you would consider supporting our work and supporting my effort. You can support directly underneath at the Spotify donations, or you can directly give a donation at paypal.me/Mean Street, Ohio. Any donation received will help me continue to provide news to you and everyone else across Ohio and beyond. I love what I do, and I just hope to continue to do it. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day.